We'll be hearing from Julien Laurent in just a moment, but this is the cover of L'Équipe in France. It is Messi against Mbappé. And when we focus on France, everyone trained for them today after a number of players had been struck by illness. So we want to talk to Julien Laurent about this. He is with us now from Qatar. Is that it then, Jules? Are all the players feeling well again and they're ready to go?
Well, they all trained today, that's for sure. They were all there training behind closed doors. Not too far away from here where we are actually. They all trained. Deschamps was happy. Maybe he was slightly blown out of proportion earlier, but we know that Konate was really not well still this morning, to be fair. But at least everybody was there. They're happy. Tchouaméni is okay now after the problem he had in his hip. Theo Hernandez is okay after the little niggle in his knee. Giroud also had a little niggle in his knee, but he trained without problem. So Deschamps is happy because at least the 24 players who were there are available to play that final.
Yeah, tell us a little bit more about Giroud, because it is Stevie's love-hate player. A little knock to the knee in training. Is he going to be okay?
He's going to be okay, Kate. The only thing is, at training tonight, I'm being told that Deschamps tried a different attack than to what he's done through the whole tournament when Giroud was actually playing with the Serbs. You know, at times they do the starters against the Serbs when it's the last training before the game. And the front three for the starters for the team were Mbappé central, Dembélé on the right-hand side, and then Marcus Thuram, who came on and did really well against Morocco in the semi-final. He was the one starting on the left. So Giroud was with the Serbs, so on the bench. Mbappé had moved from the left-hand side to the center, and you still have two very quick wingers in Thuram and Dembélé. The rest was the same: Rabiot, Tchouaméni, and Griezmann, of course, in midfield. The back four would be Koundé, Theo, Varane, and Upamecano, unless Konate can sneak in and start ahead of Upamecano, but I think it's very unlikely right now. So the only change, really, if that happens, and I'm still quite skeptical that he will drop Giroud, but that Giroud could be on the bench and Marcus Thuram starting.
Oh, do you love or hate that Giroud could be on the bench, Stevie?
Well, if I'm Giroud, I'm not a happy camper. Because I'm going to guess that this has got something to do with the fact that Mr. Mbappé doesn't want to defend. That's kind of my thinking, because why would you change it? Something that's been so successful, all of a sudden, yes, I know it's a final, but you're going to change it? And are you changing it because one guy doesn't want to defend? Really?
OK, so I want to go to Jules on this because it's something we've been talking about this week, Mbappé not wanting to defend. Let's clarify this situation, Jules. If it's something he actively does not want to do, we're taking a look here at the fewest interventions in the defending third. He's top of the list ahead of Depay, Ronaldo, Lionel Messi. This is outfield players per 90 minutes.
Shout out to Akram Afif.
Yeah, shout out of Qatar.
Yeah.
But
what?
I know, sorry for not putting his name out there with the rest of them there. But Jules, is this something that's just down to Mbappé, or is it actually to do with Deschamps' tactics?
No, it's part of the plan. They discussed it before. I mean, it's pretty obvious just to watch the game, whether you watch on television or in the stadium like us. If you keep your eyes on Kylian when he loses the ball or when the team doesn't have the ball, I mean, sometimes he will jog towards his side and the player that he's supposed to mark, for example. But very often he doesn't. And I think Deschamps has sort of integrated that into the way the team plays without the ball out of possession and where they press. And maybe that's why they don't press too high, because Kylian would not do the pressing. This is part of it. We've seen other players or the big players not doing it either. I can understand why Craig was raging the other night. I know Stevie is not happy either, and I completely get it. But I guess Deschamps also had to accommodate his best player in a way.
Is it the fact, though, that if he isn't defending, he is actually still keeping the opposition defenders busy and therefore keeping them pretty much out of the game anyway?
Yeah, but you can still do that and get in a passing lane. So you can still be an option and an outlet for a quick counterattack by being in the correct passing lane. And I think now, there's no change in it now, by the way, because if you've allowed this to happen up until this point, you don't then address it now. This should have been addressed a long, long time ago. It wasn't. He was given this freedom. But if I were to address it, I would tell him, I'm not asking you to track back all the way into our 18-yard box. What I'm asking you to do is get in a defensive position where you at the very least are denying a pass or denying a space into wide areas. That's all I'm asking you to do. And in order for him to do that as compared to what he does now, I'm talking about a difference in a 10-yard sprint. That's it. That's all I'm asking you to do, Kylian. I'm not asking you to go track back. I'm not asking you to go chase people down in a defensive third. I'm just asking you that your starting defensive position is one that allows us to be organized, that allows us to then set up behind the ball correctly, and I think more importantly, allows us to stay balanced. Because the moment that you decide that you're not going to make this effort to 10, 15 yards to cover a passing lane, everybody else has to address that space. Everybody else has to do a little bit extra in order to make sure that everything is covered. So now you're changing the way that the team plays, and now you're affecting the guy on the other side, which in this case is Ousmane Dembele, who has spent a lot of the time in this World Cup in his defensive half because he has to cover ground as well.
Here's the bit that annoys me. It's not the fact that he doesn't defend, because there are lots of players, forwards, who don't want to defend. And we all know, and we've all played with guys who you know don't want to defend. But because they're so good, you do the extra bit of work because they make you successful. But the one thing that 99.999 players don't do is turn around and tell you, I'm not defending. It goes against every single principle about a professional footballer. Every single thing. And to turn around and say that he's not going to do it is where I have the real problem. And the fact that maybe because of this guy who may win you the World Cup, but he may lose it for you as well, because if you're arranging your team to suit this guy, you might slip up. And I hope they do.
Oh.
I hope they do. I was teetering, well, who did I really want to win? Well, I did want Messi to win, but I like watching France as well. That's taking me over the edge. I hope Messi wins this. I hope Argentina wins this, because what Mbappe's doing goes against every single thing a professional footballer should do.
Very anti-French sentiment from Stevie.
I'm telling you, I absolutely am.
Let me stick with you, Stevie, because I want to talk to you about Argentina, said to have been experimenting with a back five in training. Do you take too much from this? Because they're said to have experimented with a few different formations. Will they be going with that necessarily if that's what we're seeing from them in the training session ahead of the final?
I don't think so. I think sometimes you use that as a bit of a ruse, because they'll know that everybody's watching. Jules was saying tonight that the French had Mbappé up in the middle. He's maybe doing that so that Argentina play a three in this final, thinking they're going to do that. I think Argentina should go with what suits them best, and that is a back four. And if it's a back four and Mbappé plays in the middle, then guess what? You just have to do what you would normally do anyway. You've got to double up on the guy. But it's not going to completely change the way Argentina play. So I think Argentina shouldn't be thinking too much about the French or overthinking it. Do what suits you best. Because if you do what you do best, to the best of your ability, whether Mbappé plays wide or in the middle, you still win the game.
Jules, it seems as though there's been a lot of talk about this after journalists have been watching the training sessions going around in Qatar. Do you think they would play a back five tomorrow?
Argentina, I think they're thinking about it. We've said before that Scaloni is the head coach in this World Cup that has changed the most. His teams, his formation, back five, back four. We saw in the semi-final, obviously, the four central midfielders playing in that 4-4-2 formation, which you do when you adapt to the opposition, which is completely fine. And maybe they think right now the best way to stop Kylian is to play with a back five, to have Romero and Lisandro Martinez on each side of Otamendi to help to close all the half spaces, so Rabiot can't make the runs that he wants, so Griezmann cannot make the usual runs that he makes as well, or that he's made so far in this tournament, coming from deep in that new position. And I have to say, I think the back five could be clever here, but Stevie is right. He might also just go with a 4-4-2 like we saw in the semi-final. He might keep the same midfield as well to just control a bit the midfield and have an extra man there against Tchouaméni, Rabiot and Griezmann, and that would make sense as well. I think both of them have a lot of options, but what we've seen is that Deschamps really, unless he changes Mbappé for and Giroud and Thuram, but the formation will stay the same. Pretty much everything will stay the same. Scaloni, however, has changed already a few things, and you would not be surprised if he does it again for the final.
Would you be surprised, Ale?
No, because you're trying to address Kylian Mbappé. And you're trying to address the fact that while defensively he's not helping France, he is putting himself in a position where he's trying to go on a counter and exploit his ability to run in behind. And so you're trying to create a natural double team on the right-hand side with Nahuel Molina and then Cuti Romero covering that space. So that then if indeed that's a space that France is going to attack, you've already addressed it with the presence of two defenders out there, the central defender that goes out there and then the trailing outside back who's going to be in a position to defend as well. That's what you're trying to do. The issue is that for Argentina, in order to do that, you're sacrificing the control in the midfield that Jules was just talking about. And what was so very good about Argentina against Croatia is the control, or was the control, through that midfield, where you had McAllister and Enzo Fernandez. And in the case of the semifinals, Leandro Paredes was there as well. When you think about Rodrigo de Paul and McAllister, Paredes, Enzo Fernandez, and those guys controlling the midfield, I think that's where Argentina could be most dangerous against France in winning that battle in the midfield that then limits the impact that Antoine Griezmann has on this game. And then, therefore, the impact that Kylian Mbappé may have because maybe the outlet pass is not quite available because you're not dominating the midfield. I would go with the midfield four because I think that's where Argentina's at their best. And whenever they do win the ball, if indeed they make this a physical game and then they win the ball, it's through that midfield four that they're able to keep possession of the ball. If you have only three there, I'm not quite sure that Argentina has proven to be good enough to have that 3v3 and actually keep possession for a long period of time.
Now, it feels as though it wouldn't be the eve of a big game if we didn't ask Jules for a combined 11. So we have asked him to do this. I wonder how many players are from Argentina and how many players are from France, Jules. And a lovely picture again.
As always, yeah. I've tried to be really objective here. I went for Lloris in goal because at 36 and with all the criticism that he received, I thought he was outstanding in the semi-final and the quarter-final. I've got Molina right back because I think he's really, when he's played, and that goal against the Dutch, of course, was really good, whether he was as a wing-back or as a right-back. I was very impressed with Varane, considering he was still injured 3 weeks ago. Otamendi, I thought as well, at his age, played really well, and I didn't think he would be at this level. And on the left, despite the silly foul against England on Mason Mount, I still think that Theo Hernandez has had a good World Cup. The midfield three, Enzo has been a revelation if you hadn't seen him play for Benfica earlier this season. And so has been Alexis, the Brighton midfielder, Alexis McAllister, who is so important to this Argentina team with all the movement that he does without the ball even. And then Griezmann in that new position that we mentioned many times. And then the front three, you can play them wherever you want. Julian, Kylian and Messi. It could be Mbappé as a 9, Alvarez as a 9, Mbappé left, Messi right, Messi as a 10 behind the two, whatever you want to do. I think those three, it's a bit unfair on Giroud maybe, but I think those three have been magnificent.
Any complaints with his combined 11?
This is some friendly fire against Olivier Giroud. Conversation about maybe him not starting the final, and now the fact that he doesn't get involved or included in the combined 11. If you're breaking records like Olivier Giroud is doing for France, maybe he deserves a place. I'm saying Olivier Giroud should be a starter not only tomorrow, but certainly in the combined 11 from Julien Laurens.
Stevie?
I would probably just swap one. I would play Rabiot probably instead of Fernandez. And I've not been a big fan of Rabiot, but I think he's been tremendous. I know he missed the semi-final, but I think he's been fantastic. And maybe he's got over the hump, because up until this World Cup, he's not a player that really was very much on my radar. But I would play him in the middle instead of either McAllister or Fernandez. Probably Fernandez. And
since I put Giroud in and took Julian Alvarez out, I'm taking Hugo Lloris out and putting Emiliano Martinez in. I think I trust him more than I do Hugo Lloris. In fact, if I were France, my concern would be that I know Hugo Lloris has a mistake in him at some point, and it hasn't happened just yet.
Well, thank you very much for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming, premium content, and let's not forget as well, ESPN FC 7 days a week. Subscribe to ESPN+.